Today we are going to do some terrain forming at Echo Canyon. And as a special feature, we are going to visit the real Echo Canyon in Utah. That's coming right up. Hi, I'm Roy Smith. We are going to do some terrain forming on the floor of Echo Canyon today. But before we do that, we are going to visit the real Echo Canyon in Utah. A week ago, Roy Hardwick uploaded a video that he filmed while driving through Echo Canyon. You may know Roy as Container Man 68. I call him Roy H. to distinguish him from Roy S. because I'm Roy S. Anyhow, Roy H. is a trucker. Recently he filmed Echo Canyon as he drove east through the canyon on Interstate 80. We're going to watch the first 2.5 minutes of Roy's video right now.
So we be in Echo Canyon. This is what Roy Smith is trying to recreate on his Evanston UP, what is it, UP Evanston Subdivision. So of course I'm on the eastbound side. So there's, let's see, the cliffs, the bluffs, the railroad tracks, and the creek is actually on the west side of, or on the south side of me right now. So, yeah, I see what Roy means. I keep telling him it looks like the cliffs need to be redder, but according to my phone, they're pretty white. So I guess it's the camera settings and whatnot. Of course, these up here are getting more red. I can't tell them yet. I don't like that look. Zoom back out. So what if I get the mirror in there, right? We all know how I record my... So we just crossed Echo Creek, and there's bluffs, and they do look more white in the video than they do in real life. I mean, me staring at them through the window, they look a lot redder. Well, maybe orange. Maybe it's orange. So I'm climbing, can't see the railroad tracks, but still see the bluffs. Vegetation. I think he definitely nailed the vegetation, how it looks, and it's just sporadic. And there's a little ridge line there. There's some bushes and some trees on it. We come over here and we'll give you a big wide shot of everything. So the highway and the cliffs are down yonder. And I actually tell you the truth right now. Oh, yeah. Okay, I was misjudging. You can't see it. And I don't know if you will be able to see it. Nope.
Impressive, right? Roy's video is quite simply the best drive-through video of Echo Canyon that I have ever seen. Thank you for filming it, Roy. Later on in his video, Roy observes two diesels running light with no cars. Here's what those two diesels might look like on my layout. I hope you will go over to Roy's channel and watch the rest of the video. You can do that by clicking on the link that will appear on the end screen of this video. I will also put the link to Roy's video down below in the description to this video. I encourage you to subscribe to Roy's channel while you're over there. Now, the terrain we see out there in the real world has been formed through geological processes. But on our layouts, we create terrain using a variety of scenery techniques and materials. We can create cliffs, canyons, creeks, and other terrain features just like I have done at Echo Canyon, using any method we prefer. Terrain in the real world is seldom completely flat, and leaving it flat as the sheet of plywood on our layouts would seldom be realistic. Let me show you what I mean. At a glance, the floor of Echo Canyon might appear to be flat, but look at the terrain just beyond the tracks. As this photo shows, the canyon floor has undulations. Well, I want to create the same kind of undulations on the floor of the canyon on my layout. I want you to notice a couple of other things in this photo besides the undulating terrain. First, look at the grass. I plan to add grass like this on my layout using a static grass applicator. Hopefully I can do that in next Saturday's episode. Second, notice the grove of trees. Along with the static grass, I hope I can create this grove of trees and other vegetation along the creek in next week's episode, if the trees I ordered arrive in time. Third, notice how the hills you see here on the south side of the canyon differ from the sheer cliffs on the north side of the canyon which I modeled. I'm not a geologist, so I can't explain this difference between the north and south sides of the canyon. But I am going to add the very lowest bit of this south side of the canyon wall to my layout today, just a half inch or so of it. Something else you can't see in this photo is Interstate 80, but it's there, about halfway up the side of those hills. That's where Roy H. was driving when he filmed the video you saw moments ago. As you can see here on my layout, the terrain on the canyon floor is flat. I'm going to change that today by using the same easy scenery techniques that I have used throughout the canyon. I am starting on the south side of the creek by cutting thin strips of white styrofoam. These strips are 1/4 of an inch thick. In some spots, I use a single layer of styrofoam. In others, I use 2 layers, one on top of the other. I am cutting the styrofoam to more or less follow the shape of the banks of the creek. I hold the styrofoam in place temporarily with Woodland Scenic's foam nails while I mark it for cutting. I mark it where I want to cut it using a Sharpie. I have removed it and am now cutting it with a hot wire cutter. Now I am putting it back on the layout in order to mark it underneath along the front edge of the layout so that it will be even with the fascia after I cut it. I am cutting the styrofoam along the line I drew underneath of it. Back on the layout it goes, held in place temporarily with foam nails until I glue it down and while I prepare a second layer of styrofoam for this section of the terrain. I have roughly shaped the slope of the styrofoam with the hot wire cutter. I have glued it down and am using the foam nails once again to hold it in place until the glue dries. I am further shaping the styrofoam with an old X-Acto knife and sandpaper. What a mess. But it's okay, I can easily vacuum it up. I am careful not to touch the deep pour water in the creek with the vacuum hose. Now I'm spreading a thin coat of spackling paste on the styrofoam just as I have done elsewhere in the canyon. I could use Sculptamold instead, but I prefer spackling paste for small jobs like this. Periodically, I dip my finger in the cup of water. This makes it easier to smooth out the spackling paste. There, I've done the slope along the south side of the creek. As you can see, I have also created some of that undulating terrain between the creek and the tracks. And once again, I am using 3-inch wide strips of N-scale cork roadbed to create a fascia along the front edge of the layout. I have glued it and am holding it in place with foam nails. This method for creating fascia is very easy and it's strong as long as there's something solid behind it to support it. You will recall that I used this same method for creating fascia at the opposite end of the highway overpass several weeks ago. The glue has dried and I have removed the foam nails. Now I am going to cut and remove the cork roadbed along the upper contour of the terrain using this old razor saw. And there it is. This method of creating fascia is so much easier than cutting masonite, and it's softer when you accidentally bump into it. Of course, I still have to paint it a dark gray color, and when I do, it will look just like painted masonite. The paint will harden the cork roadbed somewhat. Here you can see much better those undulations I created in the terrain between the creek and the tracks, this time using Sculpt-A-Mold. Naturally, all of that white material has to be painted. It has to dry first, and I won't have time to paint it today, but I should be able to do it before coming back in next week's episode. I have planted a couple of trees here along the south bank of the creek just to see what they would look like. I still have a few of these trees, and I have ordered more of them. I hope to plant that grove of trees along the creek in next week's episode. First, though, I will have to plant the static grass. To plant the static grass, I will use the WWS static grass applicator and materials, which came in the mail from England several weeks ago and which you saw me unbox. Here's a reminder that the western end of the scene is not yet finished and is a real eyesore. I have ordered some bridges and other materials to complete this scene. That should be my next priority. Hopefully I can create something resembling this deck girder bridge in this area of my layout. The track that once crossed this bridge has been removed, but we will talk about that later on. On the prototype, this location is where Interstate 84 joins Interstate 80 at the entrance to Echo Canyon. I will have to clean up all of those wires and put the Digitrax AR1 under the layout. There you have it, my technique for terrain forming. This technique is easy and gets rid of that flat plywood look on the layout. I am pleased with the results I am getting, so I can recommend the technique to you. Be sure to watch Roy's drive-through at Echo Canyon by clicking on the link that you will see on the end screen in a moment. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, I encourage you to give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon if you're new here, so that you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes that I talked about. And as always, be sure to post your comments down below. I read every one of them and I try to respond to every one of them as quickly as I can. I want to thank you for watching. It's a real pleasure to have you along as I try to create Echo Canyon on my layout. Until next time, happy railroading. I will see you again very soon.